Coming up on Sunday Sports Day, hoops are heating up as the Sweet 16 begins to take shape. In the Midwest, it's extra sweet for Maryland, coming off an upset of UMass. Dick Vitale and Digger Phelps will be along with their thoughts as the road to the Final Four continues. The soap opera that was Tanya Harding's skating career ended in an Oregon court. We'll take a look at what's next for Tanya. From bad girl to bad boy, San Antonio's Dennis Rodman still walks the walk and talks the talk.
My headgear's on, I'm in a comeback zone, I'm ready to rock and roll, bumps and heads, and hey, whatever I gotta do to take the win, I'm gonna do it.
New faces in new places. That's the name of the game in the NFL these days. And in the skies over Phoenix, an air show pilot and his brush with disaster. Sports Sunday rolls on.
Sports Weekly is presented by Delta Airlines.
Good morning, I'm Dick Schaap, and welcome to Sunday Sports Day, March 20th, 1994. 2.5 hours of news, views, reviews, and previews, highlights and sidelights, cheers and jeers. The NCAA continues its road company version of Agatha Christie's 10 Little Indians. And now there are 24 teams still in contention for the National Basketball Championship, and 8 more will be killed off today. Chris Fowler is with us to lead us through Sports Weekly, our opening hour. And Chris, in the opening round, not one of the top 16 seeded teams was upset. Wouldn't it be fitting if this formless season were followed by a surprisingly formful tournament? What would be more inconsistent at this point than consistency?
Well, good morning, Dick. I have to confess, though, maybe it's un-American. I am not a big Cinderella guy. What happens to Cinderella usually in the second or third round is she gets slapped around. So I think no upsets means good matchups in the second and third round.
Well, I've heard rumors that you root for the Wicked Sisters, but I'd like to see a school like Penn or a school like Wisconsin Green Bay get to the Sweet 16.
I have no problem with the Cheeseheads, but I like seeing like Indiana Temple in the second round. A lot of stories to emerge. We're going to talk a lot of college basketball. One of the best stories to emerge so far is the revival of Maryland. The Terrapins are playing with a fire and a fearlessness that's reminiscent of Michigan's young guns 2 tournaments ago. 5 underclassmen who maybe felt fortunate to even get a bid and a 10th seed are headed for the Sweet 16. Yesterday, a rematch with UMass after losing to the Minutemen by 14 points back in December up in Massachusetts. Matchup with the centers, Marcus Camby, a freshman with the reverse dunk. Then Joe Smith answers. Look at the slam tip for the Maryland freshman. Flying in for the follow. Then X-Free Hip, the back end of the alley-oop. Terps led by 6 midway through the first half. Then UMass answered. Mike Williams capping a 13-zip run. Minutemen led by 5 at the break. In the second half, more Camby rejecting. Johnny Rhodes takes it the other way. Flying into the wing, might have walked, but hey, count it with a nice finish. Terps sensing the upset. Then Joe Smith, 2 more of his and a 15-3 run late in the game. Derek Kellogg cannot steal the inbounds. Rhodes to Hip for the capper. And Maryland advances. The 10 seed going to the Sweet 16. Smith with 20. X-Free Hip had 18. And Marcus Camby, brilliant in defeat with 32 points. The Terps shot a blistering 70% in the second half against a good defensive team. And Gary Williams proud of his 5 underclassmen.
We didn't have to win the game in the first half. We just had to stay around, and we got it to 5 at halftime, and I thought that was really a key to the rest of the game. And I just reminded them that, you know, they don't send anybody to Dallas at halftime.
Other game in the region, Michigan and Texas. And Chris Webber was forgotten because Juwan Howard is playing well. The turnaround, the jump hook. He had everything. The reverse lay-in. Only guy who could stop him, Ray Jackson, who tripped him there. But the Longhorns rallied. Albert Burdett, the alley-oop. Howard keeping Michigan in control. The pump fake and then the patented turnaround. Michigan led by 1. Tom Penders knows his team has comeback ability. But Roderick Anderson swiped by Jalen Rose ahead to Jimmy King. And Michigan built a lead of 6 points. Still, you can never count Texas out. B.J. Tyler, not a great game, but watch this shot. Gets fouled, gets the roll. Michigan led by only a point. Nervous time on the Wolverine bench. 35 seconds left. Roderick Anderson just loses the ball. Good defense by Dugan Fife. And Jimmy King's dad, he sweated it all afternoon and all evening, but Michigan holds on by 5. Howard, a career-high 34, 10 of 11 at the line in the last minute and a half. Texas could not get Michigan into foul trouble. Tyler, just 6 of 24. Maryland and Michigan meet Friday in Dallas. Dick Vitale and Digger Phelps are here to join us. You guys have been sleeping in our war room. We've had our monitors set up. They've been watching all the games, and you heard us talk about what happened in that game and a lot of other stuff. First of all, Dick, Michigan. Perhaps you call it an ugly win, but these guys just know how to win these tournament games.
Well, I don't know about ugly win. I think the fact that they're tournament tough, they make all the big plays at the end of the game. They beat Pepperdine. They go to the foul line. They're 10 for 10 in the overtime. And yesterday against Texas, they had to make all the big free throws. And you talk about Juwan Howard. Outside of Glenn Robinson, who's clearly the best in the tournament in the first 2 games, Juwan Howard's knocking on a door. He was brilliant. There's Jalen Rose. He dumps it down. He says, Juwan, take us to the winner's circle. And Juwan says, just get me the rock, baby. And I'll tell you another thing. You look at, there's Jalen Rose knocking down a free throw. Was horrendous earlier in the game, but really played well later. And there's Mr. King, relieved. He's from Texas. And the thing that impresses me, remember this, in coaching we say if coaches can win close games, they're doing a heck of a job. Steve Fisher is 12 and zip. I mean, 12 and zip in the last games decided by 5 points or less. I think that's fantastic. And his team is tournament tough.
You certainly are that. Meanwhile, Maryland not tournament tough. Before this season, X-Ray Hip predicted his team would go to the Sweet 16. Gary Williams just about had a heart attack, but Hip and the Terrapins have backed it up, and maybe they're developing a tournament toughness.
Well, the thing about Maryland, you know, they shoot 8 for 10 shooting threes. Mass shoots 3 for 14 shooting threes. This whole tournament's become nothing but threes. But when you take a look at what really triggered Maryland, to me, it was Dwayne Simpkins. 20 points, takes control of the game, knows when to shoot it, hits the threes, also knows when to go inside, when to penetrate, doing another 3, looking for the threes, good rebounding by Smith when he misses. And I really think when you can get a point guard controlling a game like Simpkins, then you've got control of the game because of the shot clock. You can dribble for 20, 25. Yet he's the reason why I think now Maryland has more confidence because everybody talks about Joe Smith.
They got a shot to beat Michigan. We'll talk about those matchups. Plenty of time to do that, as well as the other games today and the other games that happened yesterday. You guys aren't going anywhere. Meanwhile, the Southeast region, that's been the dog show there. The big dog, Glenn Robinson, has proven emphatically that he is, without a doubt, without comparison on the college courts, that his brilliance has brought out the best in his supporting cast in the 2 tournament games so far. Yesterday, Purdue battled with 9-seed Alabama, and it was Robinson early. Big dog taking a bite out of the tide, wasting no time getting going, loses his man underneath, converts the layup. Just dominant in the first half, finishing the break. The big dunk over Sean Pecklove. He didn't say anything, but he did glower a little bit. Maybe should have gotten the technical. Gene Katie's team led by 9 at the break. Bama strikes back. Faulkner with a big dunk. He had 25. And then Robinson answers, showing the range. Just too much. Big dog working his way inside. This is no secret what Purdue's going to do. They just couldn't stop him. On the alley-oop, they beat that trap. They get the emphatic punctuation mark. Robinson only had 6 points in the final 15 minutes, but he did the other things to get the victory. The second time to the Sweet 16 for Gene Katie. He'll meet Kansas in Knoxville. Jacques Vaughn and Scott Pollard, the 2 freshmen, ignited the Jayhawk run that buried Wake Forest. In the East, 2nd seed UConn moved on, dispatching GW. Big guys, Danielle Marshall, Yinkaderi squaring off. Danielle striking first on the wing. Kevin Ollie with the feed there. Then Danielle to Daron Sheffer, back to Danielle. UConn led by 11 early, but GW chipped away. Yinkaderi got going inside. Nimbo Hammonds, the miss. But look out below. Yinka with the follow dunk. Then down low, just muscling Huskies out of the way. Danielle ducks. GW trailed by only 3 at the half, but Brian Fair from the perimeter was tough. Then Ray Allen for 3, and UConn wins it. Danielle 18 points despite a 24-minute drought. The Huskies get Florida in Miami Friday. The Gators beat Penn as Dan Cross scored 22. Matt Maloney for Penn held his 4 of 22 shooting. In the West, top seed Missouri and Wisconsin last night, early first half. The Tigers go right at Rasheed Wallace, or Rashard Griffin, I should say, get him in foul trouble, build a 10-point lead. Griffith riding the bench with those 3 fouls, and Missouri worked the middle. Paulo Linney right down the lane. Tigers led by 16. Michael Finley tries to keep the Badgers close. The baseline drive. He had 36 points. Wisconsin back within 4 in the first half, but Melvin Booker dominated the second half. This tournament has been a showcase for Booker, one of the least known superstars in college basketball. 35 points. He was 11 of 14. Mizzou meets Syracuse Thursday in L.A. The Orange beat Wisconsin Green Bay at their own tempo. With a balanced attack, Lawrence Moten had 17 more college stuff coming up. But now to the land of the 8-figure contracts, none bigger than Derek Coleman's. But the richest net continues to collect verbal abuse from Sir Charles, and if it didn't let up last night's Jersey-Phoenix affair, it never will. The Suns came in with 2 straight home losses, one to the lowly Pistons, but they remedied that early on. Barkley came out charging. The rebound, the outlet to KJ. He finds AC Green, who played a nice ball game. AC has always known how to finish, and the foul. Then Barkley, the steal, going out of bounds, manages to get it to Cedric Sabala. Suns led by 15 at halftime. Second half, more of the same. KJ, nice little lefty land, and the Gorilla loving it. They win by a dozen. Marley had 22, Green and Sabalas 18 apiece, and after his 15 points and 15 boards, Barkley took another swipe at Coleman, saying he has to raise the level of his play to the level of his paycheck. Tight one in Indy, the Pacers and the Jazz. Byron Scott, the jumper and the foul. Indiana led by 15 after 3. Didn't look like it was going to be tight, but Karl Malone wouldn't quit. Strips Pooh Richardson, gets it to Stockton, gets it to Hornacek, and of course the mailman is filling the lane. 37 points for Karl. More of the same. Stockton, Malone, a 12-zip Utah run. They're right back in it. Time running down, trailing by 2. Stockton to Chambers. Then Antonio Davis rejects him in the lane. One final chance for the Jazz, but Jeff Hornacek gets nothing but air. And the Pacers hold on. They squander an 18-point lead, but survive. Rick Smith's 4 big free throws down the stretch. He had 19 points. Indy, 36 of 46 from the line. One night after missed free throws cost them a game with Atlanta, the Jazz have dropped 3 straight. Now, check this out. Now, a brush with death in the skies over the Arizona desert yesterday, but everyone escaped injury during a crash at the Phoenix 500 air race. Pilot and spectators. This is Kevin Eldridge's plane getting engine problems, then catching on fire. Eldridge, you can see him there, bailing out. He is, of course, equipped with a parachute. The plane goes down in a ball of fire and explodes 11 seconds after Eldridge escaped. Fortunately, Eldridge and his parachute landed safely. He did suffer a broken leg. Nobody on the ground was hurt in the crash. From spring training, bad news for the Braves. A day after Ron Gant hobbled out of camp, released after an off-season dirt bike accident, the top candidate for his job in left field hurt himself in a far more mundane way, and word came yesterday that Chipper Jones will be out for the season. The 3 dreaded letters, ACL. Suffered Friday in the game with the Yankees. An MRI, that's the diagnosis. He should have reconstructive surgery within the next couple of weeks. The Braves' top draft choice in 1990 was hitting .371 this spring. John Kruk hopes to return sooner than his doctor's original mid-May target date after radiation therapy for testicular cancer. As he adjusts to life as an outpatient and gets impatient with media hounding, Kruk felt compelled to apologize to his teammates and his employers.
I want to apologize to my teammates and the Phillies organization. I waited way too long to get checked. And, you know, I could miss part of this season. There's a chance of it. Hopefully I can get through this radiation in good shape and start playing sooner than what everyone thinks.
We, of course, are just getting started here this morning. Lots of NCAA talk ahead, plus words with the worm. Dennis Rodman can't figure out what all the fuss is about following consecutive ejections. And next, a wonderful performance by the Admiral and a typically sound defensive performance by the New York Knicks. We'll start with the Knicks-Celtics matchup in the Garden. Pat Riley, his team on a roll defensively lately, looking for more of the same. Dino Radja blocked by Herb Williams. Rolando Blackman then sends it the other way. The outlet to Greg Anthony. Cherry picking, and he finishes, and the Celtics are sent home with a loss. Kings and Spurs, the Admiral unstoppable. Spurs on the break here. Miguel Knight will miss the shot. Robinson there for the follow dunk. Spurs bench just taking it in, enjoying it. Nice choreography. 48 points, 16 boards for the Admiral. Spring training, White Sox, Yankees, Michael Jordan facing Jeff Reardon. The fly ball to center field on the breaking ball. Gerald Williams comes in, and that's why it's spring training. Jordan reaches on the air. Cubs and Brewers, Willie Wilson against Ricky Bonas. Both exchange words as the bat goes flying. Wilson charges, taken down by catcher Matt Matheny. Both benches cleared. Wilson ejected. Guys, it's only spring training. Devils and Bruins.
Stories to return in mid-May. The Rangers' Jose Canseco, despondent over personal and professional problems, considered suicide. That was reported in Tuesday's edition of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram.
Is that a true story, or?
It was true.
You don't want to talk about it at all?
No, it's already been spoken about, and really it's nothing that I'm going to continuously speak about.
Former Padres pitcher Eric Shao was found dead Wednesday at a California drug and alcohol treatment center. Shao is remembered for giving up this single to Pete Rose, the stroke that put Rose past Ty Cobb as the all-time Major League hit leader. Eric Shao was 37. The airline crash that claimed the life of NASCAR driver Alan Kulwicki last April was caused by ice forming on the aircraft's engines. The National Transportation Safety Board reported that the pilot failed to use the engine inlet anti-ice system. The Lipton wasn't everyone's cup of tea this week. Aussie Patrick Rafter used every variety of stroke to upset Michael Chang in the quarters. And in the round of 16, Boris Becker offered a racket to the ball girl. She proceeded to take a point from Andre Agassi, who then proceeded to take the match from Becker. A couple more openings in college coaching. Auburn's Tommy Joe Eagles and TCU's Mo Iba both getting their pink slips this week. You say your dogs are barking? It was Gnome Sweet Gnome for the second time in 3 years for Martin Busser. Late Tuesday, he won the 1,100-mile Iditarod sled dog race in record time. 10 days, 13 hours, 2 minutes. For his efforts, $50,000 in a pickup truck.
What a segue. We'll put a period on the Tanya Harding case. Her amateur career over.
Basically, all she was losing was the chance to go over to Japan, skate, and lose.
This morning in Japan, figure skaters are preparing for the World Championships. In Oregon, state prisoners are eating breakfast. Tanya Harding is not with either group, thanks to a plea bargain arrangement that was struck this week. Now, part of the deal is she was fingerprinted and given the official mug shot. The major terms, a $100,000 fine, but no jail time and no jury verdict on how much Tanya knew. Mark Schwartz reports on the case's inconclusive conclusion.
In February, they let Tanya Harding skate. In March, they let her walk. Sure, Harding is now a convicted felon, but thanks to an Olympic-caliber performance by her legal team, she avoided a potential 5-year jail term. And as part of her plea bargain, she admitted no involvement in the plot to assault Nancy Kerrigan.
That would have been perceived in the eyes of the American public as unforgivable, whereas admitting to participating in a cover-up after the fact, a lot of people are prepared to empathize with that, especially since what happens is the fact it's built right into the plea bargain, as I understand, that part of the reason why she participated in the cover-up was that she was worried about being abused by Galuli.
The terms of Harding's deal actually could help make her a sympathetic figure. She's required to undergo a psychological exam as the alleged victim of spousal abuse. And she may do wonders for her public image if she parlays those 500 hours of community service into quality ice time teaching young figure skaters. And what does Harding lose by resigning her membership from the U.S. Figure Skating Association?
Almost nothing. Basically, all she was losing was the chance to go over to Japan, skate, and lose. How much that would have added to her marketability is very debatable. The ability which Weaver preserved for her, the ability to go over and skate at the Olympics in Lillehammer, that was what made her even more a worldwide persona.
Harding may prove to be a red-hot commodity on the pro skating circuit, though she would need permission from her probation officer and the court to travel beyond the West Coast for the next 3 years. And what about that $160,000 in fines Harding must pay? Well, she has reportedly earned hundreds of thousands already from tabloid television and could cash in on future movie and book deals. Oregon law does prohibit convicted criminals from profiting because of their crimes, but the Oregon Attorney General says the law is unenforceable, thus the prohibitive fines. Who are the losers here? Well, certainly Jeff Galuli, whose attorney confidently proclaimed that his client would serve less time than all the others. Scoreboard, Galuli 2 years, Harding 0. The other losers, the millions of Americans who've tracked this case from day one, only to find the final chapter is blank. We may never know for sure what Tanya Harding knew and when she knew it. In Portland, I'm Mark Schwartz, ESPN.
It is time for Face Off. Only a few days ago, Tanya Harding made a deal with the district attorney's office in Portland. She would plead guilty to hindering the prosecution, would pay $160,000 in tribute to her guilt. Was justice served or skewered? That's the subject of our Face Off today between Roy Johnson of Sports Illustrated and Mitch Albom of the Detroit Free Press. And Albom leads off.
Well, Roy, a quick definition of justice is do the right thing, not the quick thing. Now, yeah, Tanya Harding doesn't go to jail, and yeah, the Figure Skating Association gets rid of its problem, and all the lawyers get paid, but it was a deal. Justice had nothing to do with this.
Come on, Mitch, weren't you tired of this long and tiresome knee-cracker suite? I mean, come on, let's face it. The bottom line is Tanya Harding was never charged with a crime.
But she should have been.
And yet she's paying these fines and having to stay in California, and probably the worst thing she has to do, as far as she's concerned, is not carry a gun.
But is that justice? You've got Jeff Gillooly, who's going to prison for something that Tanya Harding may have done. She cuts a deal and she stays out, maybe writes a book or skates or professionally wrestles
you don't have
or something
to buy the
like
book.
that.
I don't have to see the movie. What do you think this is? An episode of L.A. Law or
Look,
Law and Order? Things are not as tight and easy in the criminal justice system as that.
But if she weren't guilty, and the only evidence against her is Jeff Gillooly, if you were in a situation, you're going to pay all that money and give up your career and everything just because he might say something? No. It looked like she was heading for prison, and she cut a deal.
Well, instead of going to court, she's going down to Disney World Land in L.A. and doing her movie. I think, well, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of the tiresome people who chased her around in the media and made this just...
But all you want to do is just get rid of it then. Remind me to get you as a judge when I have something happen, because you're going to say, I'm tired of you, just go ahead and you're out of here.
Well, the criminal justice system, there's a whole lot of opportunities for people like that to just drag it on and be in my face. Let's just get rid of them.
Mitch, where did you get this idea about justice being part of the justice system?
It must have been something I read. I don't know.
Leonard Coppett will join Mitch Albom and Roy Johnson on the Sports Reporters, which is coming up on the hour. They'll be talking basketball and Barry Bonds and more. Chris?
Okay, Dick. Coming up here, a lot more with Dick and Digger on yesterday's tournament games. Vitale, give the Gators finally some respect. 16 is set in the women's draw. The other half to be played today, but here are yesterday's scores. Again, for the numerically challenged, the Little Red W, that team won. If we gave Vitale a chance, he'd talk for a minute on every one of those women's games. We're going to go back to the men's draw now as Digger Phelps and Dick Vitale join us. Starting off in the East, UConn, maybe their fans aren't satisfied with the margin of victory, but they have gotten 2 games and gotten to the Sweet 16 against George Washington.
I thought Jim Calhoun made a great move at the end of the game defensively. Evans and Hammonds were not shooting well. They combined for like 8 for 36, but the 1-3-1 zone at the end took Yinka Dare out of the game. He was playing well, scoring inside, rebounding. But when Calhoun went to the 1-3-1 zone, it forced the shooting even to be worse than it was. It forced Dare to stay away. They got some quick scores out of it, and that's when the lead got to 10 right there, and then timeout GW, game's over.
Moving on.
As our buddy Jimmy V used to always say, survive and advance. That's the name of the game, and that's what Connecticut's doing right now. They're down in Disney World right now. Jimmy Calhoun's on the 8th hole. All I know, he's still playing, and everybody else is gone. But I'll say this, Yinka Dare, absolutely, potentially a super. Somebody has to tell all their players that this guy is a flat-out, big-time post player.
The team really is hanging out at Disney World. I know that bothers you before a game. They're going to play Florida in the next round.
Monastery.
Monastery. I think it's great down there. In fact, I want to invite him. Take a ride 2 hours to my house. Bring the Huskies down to my house. We'll have a party, Calhoun. It's on me tomorrow night. Bring Danielle and the gang to Sarasota.
They'll really be ready to play Florida. Florida survives by beating Penn. You said the whole tournament's becoming three-point shooting, and I really think that was the key yesterday. Penn, awful from outside the arc.
Oh, I think that the committee right now has got to reevaluate the three-point shot. You look at Penn, they're 8 for 37 from three-point range. They took more threes than twos. It's becoming such a dominant shot. There's an example, a missed 3 right here. Now we're going to watch on the other side, don't miss the cross. Was brilliant when Jerome Allen got his 3rd foul. Takes the ball up inside. Outstanding guard play by Cross and Brown were big. but I really feel that the three-point shot, I mean, we're seeing teams taking 28, 30, 37 attempts. That's not what the game was designed to be. Move the line back. I like the three, but move it back to the international rule.
Yeah, and I thought a key play at the end, 1:38 to go, you're down 4. You see Penn shooting threes when all they had to do is go and take the twos, drive to the hole. They could have come back in that game. You live and die by the threes, but when you panic and start shooting threes too early, it can cost you a game, and I think that's what cost Penn the game.
Well, maybe they don't understand math, but isn't that the school where you have 1,400 on the SATs? Maybe they didn't know 2 and 2 is 4.
All right, you've never been a believer in Florida. Now, you've also never been a believer in Missouri.
Wait a minute, time out. Get a T.O., baby. I like Florida's guards. I've been singing their praises. However, what I did say, the Husky Invitational, if you could plan a tournament and play Ryder, George Washington, and Florida to get to the grade 8, I think you'd like those 3. Would you not, Mr. Fowler?
It could be a tougher draw, let's put it that way. But back to Missouri now. There's another team you really haven't given a lot of respect. They're a top seed, and so far they're playing like it, dispatching Wisconsin thanks to Melvin Booker.
Well, let's not get carried away, first of all. Wisconsin, fortunately, got in the tournament. They were 7th in the Big Ten. However, Melvin Booker was brilliant, and you're right. I've not been a believer, but now I am a believer watching them today. Yesterday, rather. Booker was just brilliant shooting the threes, but they had help also. Polo Linney played brilliantly. Their bench was contributing. Everybody got involved in the game for them, and I thought they had great balance. Atkins was knocking down threes. Linney was driving, but it was the Melvin Booker show. He was absolutely on fire in the entire game. In fact, if you have to talk about great performances in the first 2 rounds, you start with Mr. Robinson, you go to Juwan Howard, and you close it out with Melvin Booker. Those 3 have been sensational.
Well, but don't forget, Rashard Griffith gets 3 fouls early, in trouble, doesn't get into the scoring rhythm that he had against Cincinnati, and with him on the bench and no inside game for Wisconsin, that really helped Missouri put him away.
Next up for Missouri, Syracuse, because the Orangemen played Wisconsin Green Bay at the pace of the Fighting Phoenix, and they didn't get a lot of scoring, didn't get much of their bench at all, but they do get the victory.
Well, I thought the key there was the balanced scoring of Syracuse. Their starters did all the scoring, no scoring from the bench, but I thought the patience of their defense as well as the aggressive defense in the second half, but watch how their offense goes. Really good explosion. Coming down, Lawrence Moulton, going up strong, really strong, making things happen inside. You got it. John Wallace had a big game. Double team, but he hits it. Then outside, Adrian Autry, 16 big points. But, you know, for Jim Boeheim to play this game and do what they had to do, playing at that pace, big discipline, patience, something new for Syracuse.
I think the great news is Syracuse and Maryland, basically now, the cloud is removed with the NCAA investigations and probation. They have arrived with the elite and their programs going in high gear.
Cloud?
There's no cutting off Vitale. We're going to hear about the rest of yesterday's games with these guys. We're going to be here all morning. We'll also look ahead to today's matchups. So coming up, we'll kick around the week's football moves. One of Buddy's boys is reunited with the wild man himself. Clyde Simmons heads to the Arizona Cardinals. Don't call them the Phoenix Cardinals anymore. And will Clyde be called upon to stop a 2-point conversion next season? The NFL is weighing the rule change. We'll look at the pros and cons next. NFL agents and front office brass. Here's a look at the weekly pro football transactions. All right, it's next January. An Emmitt Smith touchdown pulls the Cowboys within 1 point of the Niners in the NFC Championship game with just seconds to play. Dallas is now 6 feet away from the Super Bowl. Does Jimmy Johnson gamble and go for 2 or take his chances in overtime? As Linda Cohn reports, the NFL is hoping that decisions like that will spice up games as they borrow from college football, but add a twist.
Nebraska will go for 2. Gill takes, looks, rolls, throws, deflected away! Deflected away! Miami leads 31-30.
It's created excitement as well as controversy, and the NFL wants it. It's the 2-point conversion, a fixture in college football that the NFL hopes can fix their game. The change was mandated early last season when place kickers accounted for 35.1% of scoring, and kickers made 77% of their field goals, also an all-time high. The AFL had the two-point conversion, but coaches used it sparingly, only about once a week during 10 seasons. But unlike the AFL and college football, the NFL will launch its two-point conversion attempts from the 2-yard line, not the 3, to give coaches even more incentive to try it. The idea first surfaced for real in Commissioner Paul Tagliabue's State of the Game address at the Super Bowl.
People are now seeing that this is more than a gimmick, that it is an aspect of strategy. There's an aspect of emphasizing the touchdown that's important. And some of the college coaches, like Bobby Ross and Dennis Green, have been quite emphatic in some of our meetings that they think it's a strong feature of football.
Tagliabue also met with coaches who opposed the move, like Miami's Don Shula, and convinced him it was best for the game. Quoting Shula, "I didn't like it at first, but the more I looked at it, the more I realized how it could help our league and could bring excitement by making scoring touchdowns a premium." One thing the rule change will do is give pro coaches another option and force another decision.
Coaches may find it interesting initially, but sooner or later they're going to wish it, they're going to rue the day that it happened. On the other hand, what the heck? It's for the crowd and for the competitors, and why not just have a play that can win it all and get it over with, really?
Would you feel the same way if you were still coaching in the NFL?
I'd hate to see it coming. I really would. And what will happen? Talk shows will be great. The written word will be great. Television coverage, the analysts will have a field day. Why didn't they do it, or should they have done it? But when it comes down to getting those 2 yards, in this case, on the goal line, it's very difficult.
Well, the NFL owners are meeting this week in Orlando. They'll decide whether or not to make the two-point a reality for this season. Later this morning, we'll hang out with Dennis Rodman as he pumps iron post-game and talks about his scolding from the commissioner. Owen Vital loved to coach Rodman. That's coming up on Sunday Sports Day. Welcome back. A check of yesterday's spring training scores with opening day, about 2 weeks away. When we return, so will Dick and Digger to pick apart today's tournament matchups, project who's headed one step closer to Charlotte.
Michael, and they say they're gonna watch. Yeah, it's gonna be big. Everyone's gonna be there. You should come too.
I don't know why people are so upset with Bobby Knight. He just gets a little excited about winning, that's all. So what if he gave the old "you can bury me upside down" speech? Heck, in Hoosierland, that's just dinner conversation. But the way people are talking, you'd think he was about to do something really crazy, like get tattooed with blue hair. Of course, that's only allowed in the pros. Some folks are so mad at him, you'd think he just tried to sell them swampland down in Arkansas. Or tried to win a tournament with some outside help, like a lead pipe. But that's not too smart. And if there's one thing Bobby teaches his players, it's to use their heads.
We'll talk more about the Knight-Cheney matchup today a little bit later on. That's coming up in Sports Center. But now for a look at Purdue and Alabama.
Well, you know, you talk about Purdue, we talk about the big dog, obviously, Glenn Robinson, but they had so much help yesterday. Everybody contributed. They had a positive help from Porter Roberts on the perimeter. Defensively was brilliant. Matt Waddell hitting open shots. Herb Dove gave him a spark. But it all keys around the big dog. There's Mr. Robinson taking it home. We're going to watch Waddell right now enter into big dog, inside, outside, you name it, he can do it. clearly America's best player. I mean, it's an NC, Chris Fowler. It's no contest. You can't possibly even put him in a category with all the other players when it talks about the best player in America, because he's clearly the best. In fact, he will be a star at the next level from day one.
How about the defense, though? There was 2 no shots. 35 seconds, great defense. Alabama can't get the shot off.
Yeah, they did a great job defensively. Purdue, Gene Katie, that's been a trademark. Hey, deja vu again, though, in a way. 1988, they were 29-4, number 1 out of the Big Ten. They got beat by a Big 8 school, Kansas State, beat them, and now they hook up with Kansas. Please, don't tell the people at Purdue that I think Kansas is going to wave bye-bye to them in the next round.
Yet another team disrespected. I won't tell the
but
big
you got
dog
to pick
that.
one. See, I'm not going to be a politician and say this one or that one.
Well, you can't
only
go back
can
to
pick
Florida
one.
this weekend after what you said
Oh,
today
no,
about Connecticut.
I love Florida.
Let's show how Kansas got past Wake Forest, an 11-zip run in the second half of that game.
And that turned out to be 13-3 zip. And what it was, I think Jacques Vaughn, now as a freshman playing his amount of games as a point guard, he gets double figures. The defense works. Roy Williams has that tournament madness himself where he makes things happen. And when you take a look at what they do inside, no matter who's around, they got great scoring balance. They know how to score. They know how to run the break. They know how to play the defense. And that's the greatest thing about Roy Williams. He's been there, and when you talk about tournament coaches, Pitino, Williams, etc., these are the guys that make it happen.
They really do. Their teams really get motivated and fired up at tournament time in one-game scenarios. And Steve Woodbury was brilliant defensively. They contained Randolph Childress, who I love as a player, and I think that Childress flat out will be a preseason All-American next year. But he had a tough time, and I think physically might have been hurting a little bit at the end of that game.
Kansas is a team I underrated. They throw 10 guys at you. Should be a great game with Purdue. And if Kentucky and Duke get through on the other side of that region, what a great
Well, who do you like? You
Southwest
always put me on the
regional
spot.
final.
Who do you like? Pick one, Kansas or Purdue?
Purdue.
Okay, there it is. He's got
Put on
Purdue.
the
I
spot.
got Kansas. Gene Katie, no phone calls.
Coming up
please.
next, Dick, a wrap of a really weird week in the NBA, including Dennis Rodman, your guy, his visit to the principal's office.
Hey, if I had Dennis Rodman, I'd still be coaching. I would have got the Ziggy baby because he comes to play.
Pam Oliver will chat with the ferocious but sensitive free spirit from San Antonio when we come back.
I beat myself to death all the time trying to make up for what I've done wrong. You know, but nobody sees that.
Bottom of the hour on SportsCenter, a conversation with pitcher Bob Ojeda 1 year after tragedy.
I still recall, holding him up there and talking to him. I mean, I can't describe what that's like.
Dick and Digger return to preview Knight versus Cheney and a special look at UConn's Donyell Marshall. And has any athlete dominated a sport the way Steffi Graf is dominating women's tennis?
That's coming up with more than a half hour. Now, while Tournamania gripped the college courts, the NBA week featured the Worm out of control, the Admiral out of sorts, and the Diesel out of character. Meanwhile, Alonzo was in the zone, and Mad Max was in the big house briefly, and Nick opponents were in the 80s. Linda Cohn recaps.
It was a strange and bizarre week in the NBA. In Orlando on Sunday, it was Shaquille O'Neal nailing his first 6 shots from the field against the Suns. But here's the kicker. Not one of those field goals was a dunk. Shaq, 12 of 12 from the foul line in a 2-point win over the Mavs. Pardon the New York Knicks if they've been on the defensive lately. With their 8th straight win against the Bucks, the Knicks held each of their opponents under 90 points, tying a record that has stood since the 54-55 season, the year the shot clock came into use. Could happy days be here again for the men from Motown? The Pistons found some of their old magic on this West Road trip.
May have to force it now. Terry Mills, a look, 1 tick left. Got it! Oh, he drilled it! He has 12. Gotta hurry. Has to fade. Tough shot. No! Rebound, Detroit! They're gonna win it! Oh, what an improbable finish in Seattle! It's down to the final second again. Dumars. Got it! Whoa! Got it! 114, 113. Isaiah looks like a little kid. He's leaping all over the place. Unbelievable.
It was not a good week for Rockets guard Vernon Maxwell. Mad Max arrested for carrying a weapon in his car on Tuesday. Maxwell was released, and he made the Rockets-Blazers game by halftime. He was still able to contribute with 7 points in 24 minutes in a 6-point Houston win. Even MVP candidates have their off days. How about these numbers for David Robinson against the Nuggets Monday night? 8 points on 3 of 12 shooting from the field. Nuggets down the Spurs, though, for the first time in 6 tries. Playoff intensity in Charlotte between the Hawks and Hornets on Wednesday, with Kevin Willis and Alonzo Mourning mixing it up. But Alonzo's 20 points and 3 blocks in a win over Atlanta carried Charlotte. 3, not the lucky number for Milwaukee on Tuesday against the Heat. The Bucks misfired on all 11 of their three-point field goal attempts. Dennis Rodman found himself in Commissioner David Stern's office on Monday to discuss his on-court behavior. The Worm leads the league in technical fouls. So, that night in Denver, what happens to the Worm? A technical foul.
Well, the NBA suits beseech him to behave, and his coach tries to teach him a lesson. Rodman says he's not too interested in toning it down. The Worm's antics may be just as integral to his game as John McEnroe's were to his. Pam Oliver visited with the NBA's resident rebel and most colorful character.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Dennis Rodman honestly doesn't get it. Why all the controversy about his style of play?
They shouldn't be concerned because they know I'm gonna come and play. My headgear is on. I'm in a comeback zone. I'm ready to rock and roll, bumps and heads, and hey, whatever I gotta do to take the win, I'm gonna do it.
Despite being a hot ticket in San Antonio, Rodman's rock and roll show is not high on the charts with the NBA brass.
Probably one of the top 3 teams in the league, and people still bitching. They still bitching. What is he gonna do now? What is he gonna do?
No matter what he's done, John Lucas has been one of Rodman's staunchest supporters, even though Lucas benched his problem child before a key Midwest matchup against Houston.
Everybody was writing that he was kept out of the game because he missed the play, and that wasn't the reason. It's because he had been ejected 2 games in a row, and I felt if he had been in the Seattle game, we would have won that game at the end. We need his ball handle. I'm not mad at Dennis Rodman. I want to get Dennis Rodman's attention about how important he is for what we're trying to do.
With the league putting its foot down, the pressure now falls on John Lucas to try to keep Dennis Rodman under control and the Spurs focused down this critical stretch.